Hi there, and welcome back to the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Bird, joined as always by the founder of the Junior Golf Hub, Roger Nick. And Roger, certainly March coming in with a fury as the PGA Tour needed a kick, and they got it. What a jump start, the 50th playing of the Players' Championship. I guess we could say better than most. Pretty good stuff. And we welcome in our guest of the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast, Laura Ianello, the head coach of the University of Arizona. Coach, thanks so much for joining us. Let's start with a little history lesson. You win a national championship as not only a player at U of A, but then you do it as a head coach. This just has to be a dream spot for you and a dream come true.
Well, hello, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning.
It is. I'm in my dreams. I'm in my dream situation. I'm at my alma mater here at Arizona. I've been here since 1998, so that's aging me back. I've been in Tucson now for 26 years. Played college golf here, escaped the Illinois winters, and then found my permanent home here in Tucson.
Not a bad spot to be.
No, it's actually an amazing spot to be.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Been out there a few times. It's always fun to get out there in that dry heat. At 114 doesn't feel like 114, right?
No, it does. It does.
Yeah, it's so funny when you hear that, right? But it's not that hot. I don't know.
Let's jump into it, Coach. Obviously, you've got it absolutely rolling there. You did walk into a situation. Obviously, we're talking to coaches from all different parts of the country, all different parts of their career, Division I, Division II, and on. And some obviously have to come in and rebuild and have won national champions. We've had a lot of national championship head coaches, but just the fact that you won it as a player and then were able to win it as a coach. When that job, the head coaching job came your way, what ultimately was the goal for you, big picture at U of A?
So even when I played here at U of A, we were a championship culture. So, I think back in my time that I played here from 98 to 2003, if we were ever ranked out of the top 7 or top 5 in the country, that would be very disturbing. And so then I played my college golf here. We had a lot of success, and I went and played pro. And I remember it was 2008. I was done playing pro golf, and I came back to be the assistant coach for a woman named Shelly Haywood. And at that time, Greg Allen, who was my coach, who left to go to Vanderbilt, the program had some. So a little bit of a downfall where I think when I came as the assistant coach, we were ranged between 25 and 35. And it was kind of like, in my mind, I'm like, what the heck is happening in Arizona? Why are we in the top 30? I was like, is college golf that competitive where we've gotten that bad? But Coach Allen had quite a few young ladies turn pro early on him. And that's how quickly in college athletics, it can spiral down when you lose these players to the pros or maybe don't close a top recruit. And so when I came in as the assistant in 2008, I just remember like having the standard of excellence here. And that is, honestly, to be ranked in the top 10, to be a contender each year for the national championship. And so then when I got to take over the program myself in 2010, to be honest with you, I feel it's not a burden. I guess it's more of a blessing of the standard, because I played here and I am so close with all of my former teammates and all of our alumni that played here, because again, I want to make them proud. I want to continue to make them proud and let them know that I will not decrease the standard of Arizona golf. And so that I take very heavy to my heart, that, if I'm not getting the job done, I will tell you, I will be the first to resign and get somebody in here that will keep the standard, because that's what we deserve here as Wildcats, because that's the way it's always been with Coach Rick LaRose and, just all of our great success that we've had here. So more than anything, my biggest, I guess, judges are my best friends and our alumni.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, Coach, I think one of the things that we hear so much on the podcast here from parents and our players are, how do I get to play for a school like Arizona, right? Coach, the standards that you're setting, what are you looking for in that young athlete? So let's tell our audience that, because I think that's something they need to hear.
Well, of course, we love women and young ladies that compete. I love to see a young person that is getting out there playing in tournaments, and if they have a bad day, they can come back with another good round. I love to see a young lady who has some resilience in her, who can embrace moments of being uncomfortable. I think today in our society, we're getting to a point where everybody just likes to be very comfortable and they don't embrace the adversity that comes with success. And so, to be honest with you, I love parents that push their children to play multiple sports. Even if you're going to play golf, that's great, but you're going to be a swimmer, maybe you're going to go play pickleball. Just overall athleticism, I think, is being missed a little bit. And so I love a kid that just wants to compete. I love a kid that loves to, even if we're playing Go Fish or Uno, they want to win. There's something about the inherent desire to win is so important.
Coach, the standard is the standard. You talked about it. If you're outside the top 10, it's a bad year. So with that standard, we all understand, and that's why the Hub of Junior Golf podcast exists, because there are thousands of parents and players that want to go to a top 5 school. We know they all can't. We know that there is a spot for everyone, but it all does start, taking nothing away from you. I'm sure you are an amazing, amazing coach, but it starts, as they says, with the players, right? You got to have players that can play. So give us an idea of knowing what your standard is, knowing what the expectation is at Arizona. I would guess, and I'm guessing, that you start with a pretty small list of each graduating year on that June 15th, because you're really only interested in the best players from, is it around the world? Is it in Southwest, America? What's the process?
Yeah, and every coach is going to be different with this process. But something that I do at Arizona is, of course, I make my spreadsheet, my list of my top prospects, and usually those are going to be some of the top junior players in the world. Last year I spent 2 weeks in Asia, and then we're always going to Europe because, again, golf is that worldly sport. But we do look at the ranking system heavily, because a ranking system is going to be based off of, how many tournaments they played, who are they competing against, who have they beaten, all of those things, right? So again, I would say my June 15th, I probably have a spreadsheet of 30 to 50 names, of course, right? But of that first real week or 2 or month, I'm really going to be hitting home the top 10 and trying to figure out where those ladies are thinking what they want. Because most players have a niche. They might be more prone to going to a certain area, if it's Florida or California or things like that. And so also have to, then you start interviewing these players and you start figuring out who might be a good fit for your team. Because even if this person's in my top 5 as a prospect, they might not fit well with my team's culture, my personality. One thing I'm very adamant about my program is that I have a group of women. And my biggest rule that I have, especially with my recruits, is that you will come into my program and you will be a polite and a kind human being. And if you can't be those 2 things, I really don't want to have anything to do with you, because I always say you don't have to be best friends as teammates, but there's absolutely no reason ever to not be just polite. So that's one thing. And yeah, but that's kind of how we start with our recruiting process.
Coach, it's got to be very difficult too with what's going on in the environment, if you will. I know with the men's teams, we hear this a lot, and some of the women of the transfer portal. And then going back to what happens when you're recruiting. Are you recruiting the young kid coming out of school now? Are you actually relying a little bit more on the transfer portal? They have a little bit more proven success possibly at a college level. That's got to throw in a lot of variables to that whole process for you guys as well.
Yeah, the transfer portal has given us some kind of late in the game opportunities for recruiting. So like, let's say we don't get maybe a top 2025 or a top 2024 prospect. You kind of always know in the back of your mind, like, oh, there's going to be some online transfer portal shopping starting in May. But also, the portal, I think it kind of gets a bad rap where, these kids can go on and they can shop around schools and things like that. But I think for men's and women's golf right now, it's almost more about just making sure it's a good fit for the student athlete, and maybe giving that student athlete the opportunity to play. Maybe they're at a school where they're not playing, or maybe they don't gel with that coaching staff. So same for us. Like when we have players going to the portal, maybe it's an opportunity for everybody just to find a better fit. So I've had a lot of success with transfers. To be honest with you, I haven't had much action with the transfer portal. I'm talking like 5 years ago before the portal. We had some of our best players we've ever had come through the program that were transfers. Lindsay Weaver transferred to us her sophomore year from Notre Dame. Bianca Pagdanganan on the national championship team in 2018 transferred us from Gonzaga. Kendall Prince transferred to us from Ohio State on the 2015 Pac-12 championship team. So, transferring isn't always a bad thing. It has this stigma, but it's, I think kids just need to know that go to a school that you choose to, but man, if it's not a great fit, it's okay. It's okay to maybe look elsewhere too.
Well, as a high, go ahead,
Sorry,
Ryan. Yeah, I was
Well-
just going to say, as a high-profile program, and we hear a lot about NIL, right? And what's happening. Is that something that you have to contend with other schools or deal with at the level that you guys are in the women's game as much as it is in the men's game? I assume it is, but how's it look for you guys?
It is. It's definitely becoming more prevalent, especially with the top tiered schools. And I'd say the schools and the conferences that have a little bit more cash flow. I think we're definitely going to start seeing more and more of that. I mean, it really hasn't impacted us too much right now, but you look at the other sports like football, men's basketball, women's basketball, even volleyball programs nowadays. Like I think Utah is giving their whole football team like cars and all these things, so yeah. we are seeing it. I would say it's not quite, prevalent in the golf world yet, but it's for sure coming.
Let's touch on junior golf a little bit. And you're talking about a school that recruits the world. Give me some pros and cons, if you would, and of a girl from the U.S., a young lady from the U.S., as opposed to maybe a player from Asia or Europe. But I'm sure each has their pros and their cons. But now that you are recruiting all of these, what do you find the biggest difference on that junior golfer that obviously, if they're being recruited by you, they're a fantastic player? So we understand that whether they're American or European or Asian, they're very good if we've made it this far in the process. What are some of the things you've noticed that you like, dislike, some of the differences?
Well, one of the pros about, of course, being from the United States, a prospect is, the familiarity with the United States, the lifestyle here, the personalities, the type of food. I feel that most of the ladies that I have from the U.S., their homesickness isn't quite as much as, compared to a player that I might get from Asia or Europe. But then too, there's cons where, they might want to go home a lot more often, where they can just take a flight, go back to home and maybe not be able to detach as quickly. But then I would say one of the pros, I would say, from Asia and the Europeans is the fact that they are a little bit more independent at an earlier age. They're playing for national teams. They're used to traveling with their teams or national coaches, where I would say in the United States, most of these junior players are only traveling with mom and dad. Mom and dad are booking hotels, doing kind of everything for them, where the Asian community and the European recruits, they are already used to listening to a coach, being at an airport at a certain time, because mom and dad don't go to these tournaments, so that's one thing. So you kind of get a little bit more worldly, more mature 17 to 18-year-old on campus from international. That's some of my biggest differences.
All right, I'm gonna stick to that theme. So you mentioned national program. The U.S. just launched the U.S. national program, and it's really focused around the girls' golf right now. How do you think that's going to impact? Is that going to help? Is it going to hurt? What do you think? How do you feel about it?
No, I'm really excited about the USGA and them naming head coach Chris Zambri. I think he's going to be phenomenal. I think that's really going to help our domestic student athletes because, again, I think they're going to learn at an earlier age what it's like to have other coaches, maybe traveling without mom and dad and learning that independence. And, I really, really hope the USGA, I know they're talking on a grand scheme of helping, thousands of young families and things like that. But I also really, really hope that they specialize and they really focus into maybe on those top 20 young girls, boys, and then focus on maybe the top 10 women's amateurs, because really that's the specialization of it and getting those top players, those resources, I think will be really beneficial down the line for the LPGA Tour or the Epson or things like that. What we're seeing in Europe when these women come to college and then boom, if you look the last couple of years, most of the international players have been number one in the world for Wagger, of course, besides like Rose Zhang. But they've got these amazing resources that are already preparing them for the next stage, which is pro golf.
So let's take that said player that has interest in you. You have interest in them because they are a great player. What can that player do for you, Coach, that unblurs some of the lines? So we know from this conversation, you've got a pretty big list, especially starting with that sophomore year, and obviously it's going to get shorter and shorter, smaller and smaller. But when you have that player, is it strictly they've got to be one of the best golfers in the world? Have you ever taken maybe a lower ranked player than a higher ranked player because you just had a feeling based on personality, based on work ethic, based on X factor?
100%. Of course, I think we're always looking as coaches, we're always looking at, golf is very black and white. We can see golf scores. So of course we're going to be looking at their scores. We're going to be looking at their consistency of play. But 100%, we're always looking for the X factor. And I have definitely, taken a chance on a player who I could see more potential rather than them dominating at that junior role right now, where I see potential for them to grow and get stronger. I mean, perfect example, Julia Meismer on my team right now from Kansas City. I mean, she wasn't a top junior ranked for her class in 2022, but man, she's just, killing it in college golf, and she's powerful and she's strong. Some of the things that these juniors can really be doing is just start preparing for college golf. So if you're in the junior golf world, try to mimic the lifestyle that you're going to have in college. And that's, being coachable, listening to coaches, maybe working with a sports psychologist. Even though, I know their bodies are young and still developing, but get in the gym and start doing some basic mobility, fundamental, just some work with, so that way your first week on campus in the weight room is not like this huge shock. And then your body just hurts and you can't even swing a golf club because you've never worked out. Start in the recruiting process. I love talking to young women about, what do you love about competition? What do you do to prepare for a tournament? What do you think is going to make you be the best down the road? Or what is it that you do that is special compared to someone else? And when these young people answer those questions on my recruiting calls, like, I take note, because how they respond to those questions tells me the type of player that they are. And I can tell you right away in the first conversation that I have with a junior, I can instantly tell that they, one, love the game, or they're doing it because mom and dad want them to play. Like, you instantly can know. So I think that's part of the process too, is finding out who really wants to be good, who wants to play college golf, not just, because mom and dad are telling me I should go play college golf.
Coach, that's a great answer. I hope our listeners got that golden nugget there about the love of the game for the player's sake, not for the parents' sake. With that being said, you mentioned something about tournaments and where they're playing, for the love of the game. Would you say, or maybe you don't have to say this, but is it important to understand players who play in events, let's say HAGA events, which is obviously the most recognized events for junior golfers, and they get the most ranking points than most other events in the country. But if a player plays in the HAGA events and they are finishing middle of the pack, maybe bottom of the pack, but they're playing, right? That's great. Versus a kid who's playing, call it NB3, call it Hurricane, call it anything else you want to call it, right? And winning those events and winning on a regular basis. Who's your pick?
Oh, it's the kids that are winning. It's the kids that are, playing in all the Arizona Junior Golf Association invitationals and tournaments, or if it's the FCG, or if it's the Hurricane Tour, or it's the Toyota Tour Cup, you name it. It doesn't matter. It's of course, consistency of scores, and then the fact that if they're winning tells me that you can fight to the end, even when you're very uncomfortable those last 3 holes, and you can gut it out. Winning is really important, but just as important as if, let's say, you shoot like an 80 in round 1 and you come back with a 70 in round 2. Those are key things there. So I think all of us coaches are definitely looking at all aspects of competitive golf. If it's not just HAGA, it is literally just competition.
I'm going to just ask this because I want clarity. I want the parents to hear this and the players to hear this, but it's the consistency of score, or maybe not consistency of score. It's consistency of playing enough golf in getting scores, right? Just getting scores, getting good scores. And you're going to have that anomaly round where you might shoot 80, but you're going to have that anomaly round. You might shoot 65 too, right? So it's playing in enough events so you can see that.
Exactly. And then another big thing that parents need to think about too, which I've seen this influx of players withdrawing. And I tell you what, if I notice that a prospect is withdrawing from multiple tournaments when they've played 2 rounds, and I don't, I understand there's certain situations where you literally might have a physical injury, or you might come down like with the flu or something like that. But if I see it consistently across the board where you're withdrawing because you're not playing well, and the parents are allowing for your child to just quit the tournament, that is a huge red flag, because then that just screams to me, okay, if I take you to the Vanderbilt tournament in Nashville, like, is there a potential where you're going to tell me one day, like, oh, coach, I can't play today just because maybe you have like a sore thumb? I don't know, so it's a big red flag. Like, I think persevering and playing the whole tournament, even when maybe you do have a little cold or you're not 100%, it builds adversity. It's toughness, right?
Yeah. We call that pulled heart muscle, right? I mean, absolutely.
Coach, some of the coaches we have on here, men and women, talk about that they also recruit the parents, that they have seen enough horror shows, if you will, and other way around. How much do you pay attention to a prospect's social media, a prospect's how involved their parents are in that whole process? Is that something you even look into?
Oh, I think without a doubt. And even in the junior golf world, on the recruiting scheme, there's parents that already have a reputation, and coaches are quick to learn about who's maybe the crazy dad or who's maybe the scary mom or whatever. But to be honest with you, I like to just try to get to know the player first. And then, of course, we will involve the parents. But the one thing that's most important to me is when I'm getting to know a prospect, maybe the first or second Zoom call, is I love talking to the prospect. I love talking to the junior golfer. And sometimes when a parent is in on the call with the junior golfer, which is great, I don't mind a parent joining the Zoom call at all. I think that's great. But when the parent monopolizes the entire conversation, again, that really frustrates, I think, all coaches, because then we're not getting to hear from who we actually are going to spend the 4 years with. But it's a process, and these, I have 2 daughters, and so they're the most important people in my life. So I can relate to these young parents where their child is an amazing athlete and they're so excited for their child to have these opportunities. So I understand their want to help and be involved and make sure it's the perfect fit for their child, which is great. But 2, I think also it's got to come from the prospects, got to come from the child, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's their experience. But I haven't, to be honest with you, I haven't had any horror stories. From the parents that I've had, that I've heard that I might have horror stories. I have a very strict rule also, like on my team, where I'm never really going to communicate with your parent without you being involved. So it's like almost like a 3-way connection. So it's like, we're going to have my student athlete, we're going to have mom and dad and me, and we're all going to be conversating at the same time, because I don't ever want to get into a situation where it's that he said, she said situation. I think open dialogue, through the years, I've learned to be is most efficient.
No doubt about it. Coach, a lot of players are going to ask, if I come to the University of Arizona, what do I get? What does it look like? What's a day in the life?
Oh boy, the day in the life of a Wildcat.
Yeah.
You get to wear sandals and flip-flops around campus all year long. No, but it's pretty amazing. We practice 5 days a week. We have a brand new facility being built out at Tucson Country Club, $15 million project. We are so excited. It's opening in 1 month. But the student athletes here have a great life. We might have strength and conditioning in the morning. The ladies have class in the afternoon. We have practice in the morning 2 days a week, but there's training table. There's Bear Down Kitchen, where everybody gets to eat a free meal every day of the week. And in our new clubhouse, we're going to have a kitchen stocked with all the goodies, everything they need. But as for apparel, head to toe, you name it, you're going to be sporting Arizona. And 2, just I believe that you get to be around an amazing team of like-minded women who are driven for the very similar goal of hopefully maybe someday playing pro golf, or being an executive or a doctor or something at a very high level. I'm very proud of the women on my team, just because they're perfectionists, but in everything they do, if it's academics and in golf. And you get to be around 2 amazing coaches. I mean, me and Coach B, we love to laugh. I love to have a good time. We're golf coaches. I try not to take this too seriously. And my goal every day is to just try to get better every day. 1%, 2%, it doesn't matter. And with that, simulating pressure in a lot of practices that we have, just simulating what we see on the golf course. We do have a lot of qualifying, because I keep a small team between 7 to 9 women, and I love qualifying for every tournament, because I want everybody to have a chance. We always qualify for 2 spots and then 3 coaches picks. But it's heaven. We have 300 days of sunshine here, warm weather, some of the best golf on the planet. I mean, I would say a lot of elderly people live here because it's such a great place for golf, but it's truly an amazing experience being a Wildcat.
Coach, last couple things, and we'll let you be on your way. What about the idea, and certainly you are at the top echelon. What about the idea, though, of players reaching out to you and letting you know why they think Arizona would be a good spot and you would be a good coach for them? Do you encourage junior golfers to get a hold of you, put themselves on your radar? How do you feel about that?
I do. I love it when prospects reach out to me and let me know where they're playing, when they're playing, because then I will respond and I'll let them know, hey, I'm going to be there. I will make sure to go watch a prospect who I've never seen before, who has reached out to me, taken the time to email me. And that way I can do my research and get to know them. And then I know they're actually interested, which is half the battle in recruiting. Is I could watch a player for 18 holes and then not even know that they don't want to go to Arizona, where if a kid has reached out to me, even more incentive for me to go watch.
I like that. I think those kids need to hear that. Reach out.
Well, Coach, it obviously is that time of year, moving into the crunch time. We wish you the best of luck and hanging another banner. We really appreciate your time on the podcast today.
Thank you guys for having me. This was great. I love it. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Laura. Absolutely. Have a good one. Good luck. Bye.
Wow. Really good stuff there, Roger. I mean, what I love about the podcast more than everything is every coach is a little bit different. And, even with the success of a national championship at Arizona, it is never the same answer. It's always a little bit different. It ultimately is what makes this podcast special, but also makes the recruiting process special, that when you listen to these coaches and they are all a little bit different about how they go about it or what they want or what the day in the life is or what they're looking for as a player. Ultimately, I know you guys say this at the Hub, but there is really a good fit school for everyone. And this was just another great indication of that.
It really is. And I love what she said about just going out and getting scores, being consistent with your play, obviously not withdrawing. Those are all just golden nuggets. And right there at the end, when she's talking about reaching out, and she loves when players reach out to her. I mean, that's what you need to know, right? I mean, these players, these kids need to know, reach out, start early, play golf, love golf, get your scores down, right? I mean, phenomenal, great standards. I tell you, bear down. I mean, the Wildcats are one of those top teams out there that's really tough to play for.
I think this may be the first coach that did bring up the WD, and certainly the overwhelming ranking system and paying attention to the ranking system and trying to negotiate and work the ranking system has ultimately led to this. It is a bit of an epidemic in junior golf. You see it, I've seen it, you've seen it. You double the first, you triple the second, out of there. Two holes, that's enough for me. I'm not, no matter in the back of your mind, no matter how good I play, it's going to hurt me. Why even continue on? Let's just WD and put a 0 on there, and it's not going to hurt my ranking one bit.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing there, Ryan, is that it's not even the player, right? It's not the player that does that. It's the parents who's making that happen. And the players are a victim of that circumstance. And again, she mentioned it multiple times. I know parents mean well, right? It's not that we're trying to bash parents. We mean well, that you want to have the best opportunity for your kids, but at the same time, it's their life. It's that their child or their junior golfer is going to go spend 4 years with another group, another team, another mom or dad, if you will, from the coach's perspective. They need to be able to know who they really are, not kind of this kind of made up thing that I just make myself look good on Instagram.
Yeah, and I think the biggest misconception, Roger, in junior golf is that you can't have a bad day. In fact, I'll go the other way. Enough coaches have told us they're more impressed by your comeback, your bounce back, than, listen, if you're on Arizona's radar, it's not because you've never had a bad score. It's because you're a great player. Your body of work is great. But what might actually separate you is sticking out from a double, triple start and fighting for a 79, 80, 81 and coming back the next day and smile on your face, fresh start that way, and going out and putting a good number on. You might not win, but I get the sense coaches are, because it's not realistic to not think in college golf there's not going to be ups and downs. It's part of golf to just withdraw and try to pretend like it never happened. And no, we've never had any adversity. Everything's good. Everything's good. Don't worry about the 6 WDs you see on there. Look at all those rounds in the 60s. Everything's good.
Yeah.
No, I think I think pushing through and challenging yourself is actually a real bonus for these coaches.
It is a bonus for the coaches. It's even bigger bonus for the players, right? I mean, think about what they can get from that if they come back and have that success after a bad day. I mean, we see it all the time. We saw it with Roy McIlroy this week at the play. I mean, you see it all the time, right? You know, great players having bad days, and to think that your child or think that you as a junior golfer can't have a bad day is just so unrealistic. And I know it's something we've talked about a lot. But if you understand where you are, you understand your skills, you understand the things that go into being a great player, right, or being the best player you can be, you understand that baseline, you can overcome that because you go, hey, you know what? I had a bad day, but I know my skills are good. I know that my mental side is good. I know all of those things because I do assessments. I do, I understand that, right? So I think that's one of the things that we just don't see enough of yet, right?
And to that point, we are inside a month now from a transformative moment in the history of junior golf. And I don't over dramatize that, but the Junior Golf Hub ranking system, we are less than a month out now. So this is, as I said, this is a transformative moment in the history of junior golf. It's going to change how players look at it, how coaches look at it, how parents look at it. And Junior Golf Hub, juniorgolfhub.com is obviously all things junior golf, but that is also going to be the start where you can go and start to learn more about the new ranking system and why this is going to be endorsed, embraced by everyone in junior golf, players, coaches, college coaches, recruiting. This is really a huge moment in time for the game of junior golf, Roger.
It really is. And you know what? Coach Laura said it the best. I mean, she's going to look at players. You finish, you win tournaments, you learn how to win, you learn how to score. It doesn't matter where it is. You're going to get recognized. And I think if we can make that happen with the rankings that's coming out, where you're going to be rewarded for participation in play, that can't be a bad thing, right? I mean, we hope these WDs will almost go away because you're rewarded for playing. You're rewarded for playing in the best events you can play in, right? Not penalized. So we're really excited about it.
No, everyone is, and the more people I have a chance and opportunity to talk about it, it just everyone finally on the same page. This is going to be an amazing thing. So if you're not already, juniorgolfhub.com needs to be part of your daily browser. As I said, you're going to get more information. Certainly this podcast will be the first place that tells you when we are actually ready to launch and when it's completely ready to go. But we are almost there. We're on the 1 yard line, and certainly to think about it. I mean, how exciting is this? In the next 30 days, the Junior Golf Hub is going to step forward boldly and I don't want to say save junior golf, but certainly save the direction that negatively that it is heading down.
Yeah, Ryan, well said. I just hope that we're going to keep players playing the game longer, right? And enjoying the game for the game's sake, which I think in turn will will develop better players overall and players with the joy of playing and not this idea that this is a job at 14, 15, 16 years old that I have to do because I have to get college scholarship. No, I'm going out to play my little league golf, if you will, right? Just like, little league baseball was such a fun thing to do. Yeah. So that's what we want to make it. And the cream of the crop will rise to the top,
Yep, no doubt. So almost here, certainly keep it locked to the Hub of Junior Golf podcast. Keep it locked to juniorgolf.com for all information in the coming weeks as we are just about here. We thank Coach Laura Ianello, the head coach of the University of Arizona women's golf team. Incredible success that she's had there, that they've had there. We thank her for coming on. Roger, as always, great catching up with you. For our producer and director, Michael Nick, continues to churn these out, and we thank you, the listener and the watcher, because it's weekly now that the viewership and the listeners are growing, which tells us all we need to know that we are filling a void in the podcast world, filling a void in the junior golf space. So for Roger Nick and Michael Nick, I'm Ryan Burr. We'll see you real soon on the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast.